It's quite different. Now there's something that seems to be a little bit different here. Now there's something. Hey yo guys. Hello. Hey yo. It doesn't even work, man.
Hi, this is Tony Robbins. Welcome to session number 1, your hour of power. Listen, I'm very excited for what we're going to share with you because I'm going to be sharing with you today, fundamentally, what changed my life years ago and the fundamental thing I do with just about anybody. I mean, what I do whether I'm working with a president of a company or a young person, a pro athlete or a mom or a dad, somebody wants to make a change, and we're going to go beyond philosophy into the real mechanics, the real strategy, the real tools. This is where it all starts. And to start this session, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about what's missing. Yeah, missing. What's missing from your life? You might say, wait a second, nothing's missing from my life, Tony. I'm on a roll. I'm here with you on the ultimate edge. I mean, my life is great. I'm just here because I like to improve a few things. Okay, I believe you. But if you're really honest, I bet there's something missing. And by the way, there's nothing to be embarrassed about that. We're so weird as a society. It's like we all want to be perfect. Something missing from my life? Nothing's missing. We try to cover it up even to ourselves. But I'll tell you how we know it. If you look around at most people's lives, there's this huge thing called stress. In fact, if you read interviews with people that do all these focus groups on politics, on business, on products, the number one emotion experienced by people in North America today, you know what it is? Anxiety. Not fear. Fear's not so bad. If you get fearful, your whole body kind of gears up and then something happens. Either you were fearful and you were right and you have to deal with the problem, or many times the situation gets resolved and you go, man, I was fearful and I didn't need to be, and the fear's gone. But anxiety is an emotion that most people carry with them every day. It's that feeling that never goes away. It never ends. It's the feeling that, man, if I don't run home and take care of all those emails and everything else, it's like it just gets piling up. It's more and more and more. It's the feeling that you never completely win, that you can't let go. Maybe that you can't even fully allow yourself to enjoy, much less just achieve and succeed. See, the goal of this first session of this hour of power is to get you not just to realize how extraordinary your life is and appreciate what you have, but also to decide on what you want and to make it happen by making the shifts inside yourself that are necessary. But to make that happen, you're going to have to recapture what's missing. Not only what you want and what you need, but if there's one thing missing from most people's life today because of the way we live and technology, it's time. I mean, think about it. Not just time, but time for yourself. Time to actually feel. Time to not just react to the constant stimulus. Time to sit down and dream or decide, this is how I want my life to be. This is what I'm committed to. This is how I'm going to live from this day forward. See, most of us are so caught up in making a living and reacting to the Crackberry or your iPhone or another set of emails or someone who's interrupting you in the middle of a conversation to take an email, on their phone, or the buzzing in your pocket, or the stimulus of 1,000 channels. All of this set of triggers, all our normal business demands we have from our families. We want to take care of our families. We want to make a difference in the world and be the strongest we could possibly be. We want to achieve and succeed and be happy. And oh yeah, by the way, we got to deal with terrorism, economies that go up and down. And wow, what happened to that stock market? What happened to that real estate market? Or man, that subprime crisis. Ooh. Or, what's happening in my business? There's all the normal stresses of the environment. And then there's how we've begun to live. And I'm here to say to you that if you will give yourself one gift, if you give yourself the gift a little bit of time to think, to feel, to be, to condition your body and mind to work together, the whole game can change. But if you don't, you can succeed like crazy, you can make it all happen, and you can still feel empty. Have you been there? Where you made everybody else feel good and you were a super dad or mom or a business person and, it's all there, but you still got stress. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're not going to have stress in your life, but I'm saying there needs to be some time for you. Do you agree with me on this? So if you do that, you can make this psychological shift that changes life, the mental shift, the emotional shift, and the physical shift. Because after all, what are we talking about here when we talk about an extraordinary life? Let's remind you, what creates an extraordinary life no matter what's happening in our life? It's this psychology. And by the way, are you experiencing an extraordinary life? Are we living in a world of extraordinary life? Extraordinary resources, yes. But depending on where you live in the world, if you live in the Western world or quote, the modern world, what you see mostly is stress. I actually live all over the world in 4 different countries, but my primary residence where I'm from originally is the US. And here in America, we're 5% of the world's population, but we consume 80% of the world's cocaine. I mean, that tells you something's missing. When you got to coke yourself up, drug yourself out, hype yourself up with more caffeine, distract yourself as much as you can with your iPod, your music, anything to just change your state, it's because there's some level of fulfillment that's missing. Don't get me wrong, all those things are wonderful, but they've got to be things that we don't rely on to be alive. Would you agree? Kids today are 10 times heavier than they've ever been. And when I say 10 times, I'm not exaggerating by much. We have more obese people in America and frankly in the Western world than any time in human history. We're not exactly starving for food. We're starving for wisdom. We're starving for fulfillment. We're starving for the emotions that we want. And so most of us turn to drugs. And it isn't always a medical drug or even an illicit drug, but rather it's the drug of food. It's the drug of distraction. It's the drug of alcohol or cigarettes or something to be able to just kind of cope with the stress that's in our life. But that doesn't mean we have a better life. It's just a break for a moment. And then we re-enter that same world. Part of my goal here with you in the Ultimate Edge, and even in the beginning of this session, is to set up a new game for you that you design, that you can win, and that you can condition into your system so that when things get crazy, bam, you can go there. And it doesn't require you to go to some external stimulus to feel that aliveness or to feel fulfilled or to feel at peace or to feel your center. So my goal is to get you to develop a couple of simple habits, to make a few simple decisions, to take a couple of actions that'll begin to create a momentum for your life that will take you to the point where you will stand tall and say, I love my life. This is what I've always dreamed about. I am not willing to settle for less than I can be or share or create or give in my lifetime. And I want to take advantage of this incredible time to be alive, and I want to enjoy it to its fullest, and I want to make sure I contribute in a unique way. And 500 channels of television with nothing on but infomercials, and 8 million different forms of computers and music and email and instant messages and beepers and cell phones and remote access to the internet, none of that's going to transform your life. Your life is going to change if you do nothing, because life is changing so rapidly around you. Your body's going to change whether you want it to or not as time goes by. Your relationships are going to change. People are going to die. People are going to pass on. People are going to change their beliefs and values. Everything in your life is going to change. You don't have to work at change. Change is automatic. Progress is not. To get the edge, you have to decide that you're going to make progress in your life. You're going to have to decide that you're not going to be one of those people just drawn by the river, and you also can't get off the river and just sit on the side, because life keeps moving. You got to step in the river, and you got to direct your course by knowing what you want for your life. Now, why don't most people do this? Because
The three were sitting 2 chairs away, next to me, and I was sipping a cup of tea. In front of me was another woman, a bartender, a Chinese lady who spoke almost perfect English. I was quite impressed. I started having a conversation with the Canadian woman, and I asked her if the man beside was her husband. From her reaction, okay, I remember another experience of mine that had left me with a big impression. I was at a bar, and I had met with a woman who seemed to be in her 50s. She was an English teacher from Canada who was sipping some wine with one of her friends. Just next to her was another man, an architect owner of a company. An architect owner of a company. An architect owner of a company. They were talking to each other, and from what I had heard, the three had the habit of performing together on Tuesdays. The man was a bass guitar player, and the two women were singers. The three were sitting 2 chairs away from me, and the three were just 2 chairs away. The three were just 2 chairs away from me. The three were just 2 chairs away from me as I was sipping a cup of tea. In front was another woman, a bartender. In front was another woman, a bartender, a Chinese lady who spoke almost perfect English. Almost perfect English that I was quite impressed. Almost perfect English that I was quite impressed. I started having a conversation with the Canadian woman, and I asked her if the man beside was her husband. From her reaction, I knew that it wouldn't have happened nor this life nor the next. From her reaction, I knew that it wouldn't have happened either this life nor the next. Either in this life nor in the next. Seeing such a reaction, I tickled her a little bit. Seeing such a reaction, I tickled her a little, saying that we'll do good together. Slowly the conversation evolved, and we started talking about a philosophical concept. Slowly the conversation evolved, and we started talking about a philosophical concept. Slowly the conversation evolved, and we started talking about the philosophical concept. I gave her the definition that I had of the concept. I gave her the definition that I had of the concept. I gave her the definition I had of the concept. I gave her the definition I had of the concept, and and she gave her own. And she gave her own. However, her definition seemed to be incorrect. However, her definition seemed to be incorrect. After checking on the internet, it came that my definition was the one after checking on the internet, it came that my definition was true. Slowly the conversation evolved and we started talking about the philosophical concept. I gave her the definition I had of the concept and she gave her own. However, her definition seemed to be incorrect. No E here. Slowly the conversation evolved and we started talking about a philosophical concept. I gave her the definition I had of the concept and she gave her own. After checking on the internet, it came that my definition was true. However, she started to become rigid. However, that's when she became rigid. However, that's when she started to give all sorts of explanations. However, that's when, okay. So the conversation evolved and we started talking about the philosophical concept. I gave her the definition I had of the concept and she gave her own. After checking on the internet, it came that my definition was true. However, she started to give all sorts of explanations with the goal of making her definition more valid. She had her own opinions. After checking on the internet, it came that my definition was true. However, that's when she started. That's when she started to give. That's when she started to give all sorts of explanations with the goal of making her definition more valid. She had her opinions, and these were truths. Nevertheless, from my own analysis, I was able to see something else. She was manifesting the desire to have power over the topic. Even her friends seemed afraid to confront her. I'm not even talking about the man that was. I'm not even talking about the architect who was sitting next to her. The man was petrified. And couldn't even raise his voice. Nevertheless, from my own analysis, I was able to see something else. She was manifesting the desire to have power over the topic. afraid, or a friend even seemed afraid to confront her. The man next to her still, nobody could reason her. Nobody could reason her. She didn't want to know the truth. she started talking about how from the topic she started moving around and talking about how good of a person she was and how fucked up the world was. It is as though her speech was expressing something different than the desire for truth. Being ignorant at the time, I tried to argue back. put her back on track, I should have talked to her the way I would have spoken to a man. That's when I learned a lesson. To a man, talk as you would to a man, talk as you would talk to a man.
most of us are so stressed, we never take time for the thing that's really missing, time for ourselves. I mean, what's really missing is we don't ever contribute to ourselves. We're so busy taking care of our children and worrying about our spouses and our friends and making sure at work we're accomplishing the tasks on time. And the last person who gets taken care of is us. And we live in a society that's supposed to be so selfish, so many people talk about, but the truth of the matter is most of us are working so hard to make sure everybody else is happy that we aren't happy within ourselves. And so I want to talk to you about what's missing. Time for you. I mean, when do we really stop and feel? I mean, really feel, remember who we are and what we're about and what we want from our lives. Most of us never find that time. And so what happens to most of us is since we're constantly in the action of doing, you know, the old phrase, we're not human doings, we're human beings. It's kind of corny, but it's true. We don't take the time to be. And so what occurs is, out of the stress of doing, constantly competing, trying to make sure we achieve, we contribute, and take care of the family, and we make everything happen, most of us, to survive, look for a way to stop and distract ourselves. And so we drug ourselves. And the drug isn't always regular drugs. We don't call it drugs, we call it food. Because you eat enough of that stuff and load up, guess what happens? All of a sudden you relax. You know, especially if you overeat, all that blood rushes into your stomach, you know, and you start to breathe again. Do you ever notice when you're going, go like this, you're not breathing very much? That creates just a bit of stress. And some people, that's not enough. They get CNN and then they're working on the internet simultaneously and they're getting a conversation on the other side because they figure if they can keep enough things going in their head, they can forget about all the stuff that's stressing them. You know, they don't even care about what's on the television. They don't really care about what they're surfing on the net. They just need an escape. But you know, you'll never escape your way to fulfillment. You'll never escape your way to joy. You'll never escape your way to an extraordinary life. The only way you get that is by deciding what that means to you. What is that extraordinary life? What is that fulfillment? What is it you want? And that's got to be a process that is consistent, not something you do once in a while when you got a birthday with a zero on the end. Not something that you do, you know, at New Year's where you sit down and go, all right, you know, I better look at my life, see how I'm doing. All right, let's make some resolutions that I know I'm going to break within the week. And then I'll check in on them maybe a year from now, next New Year's, and see how I'm doing. That's called recipe for failure. Do you think most people in life are fulfilled? Or are most people in life stressed? Now, let me tell you, stress is a code word for fear. See, when somebody says they're stressed, that's because they don't want to say I'm fearful. You go, no, I'm just stressed. I have all these things to do. Well, why are you stressed about it? Well, if I don't get them done, if you don't get them done, what? Well, then everybody will be upset. Well, what if they are a little upset? Well, you know, well, then I'll have failed. Well, if you fail, what does that mean? Well, you keep on digging. If they fail, they feel like if they failed, then they're worthless. If they're worthless, they won't be loved. You know, stress comes from making things more important than they really are. And most people in life are spending all their time majoring in minor things. They're putting all their focus, all their energy, all their attention on responding to the reactions of the moment, rather than stopping in that timeless place of who you are and saying, gosh, what is it that I really want today? What do I want to create? Because I got to tell you something. Everything in the outside world, everything around you that you like or dislike, that's stressing you or that you're thrilled about, was first created on the inside. Everything that you're experiencing in your life, your relationship, the way your kids are, your job, your opportunities, it all started with decisions you made in your head. Decisions about what to focus on, decisions about what things were meaning, whether you should be upset about it, or whether you should learn from it, whether this is a challenge, an opportunity, or a crisis. And the decision about what you're going to do, these decisions are shaping your life. You got to understand, getting the edge simply means this: 80% of success in anything in life is psychology. The ability to manage your mindset, your ability to find the opportunity in any situation. This isn't stupid positive thinking where you just sit around and, you know, go to your garden and say there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I don't believe in that kind of positive thinking. It's garbage. There's weeds there and you got to pull them out. But you got to have enough intelligence, enough psychology to say, I'm not going to see it worse than it is. Because, you know, people say I'm skeptical, I'm pessimistic. Oh, garbage, you're fearful. If you say you're skeptical or you're pessimistic, what you're really saying is, I'm afraid of being disappointed. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to look naive. So I don't want to be hurt again. But I got news for you. If you're going to have an extraordinary quality of life, if you're going to get the edge in life, where the passion and the juice and the joy and the fulfillment and the happiness and the love and the family is, where the Quan is, like Jerry Maguire talked about, right? Where you got it all. You got the love, the respect, the connection, the contribution, the money, the fun, the fame, the whatever. Whatever your definition of the ultimate level of life, that edge comes when you master your mind and your emotions. But you know what? 20% of your success is mechanics, and they do play a role. And sometimes our mechanics are getting in the way of our psychology. Sometimes we've structured our life where there's no time to think or be. So you say, okay, if you ranted and rave, what am I supposed to do? All right, you start to kind of say, I should take some time for myself. Where am I going to find that? I got to get up. I got to take the kids to school. I got to make it to work. I get it all done. I come back home. I got to pick them up. I got to take them to dance lessons, to soccer. Well, then I got to work on my homework. Then I got to answer all my emails. When am I going to do this stuff? Stop. We all get what we have to have. That's it. The most basic principle getting the edge is for you to understand and for me to remember, for all of us to remember, we all get our musts, we don't get our shoulds. Everybody's got a list of shoulds. I should take time to work out. I should take time for myself. I should actually go on a diet. I should make more calls. I should just allow myself to listen to some music and meditate a little bit. I should do my taxes. But most people doing this stuff, they just what I call should all over themselves. You don't want to should all over yourself. Here's what's true. What you must do, what you believe is a must, happens. Right now, you're earning what you must earn and not a dime more. Not what you want to, don't get me wrong. And listen, I know I sound like I'm ranting. That's because I'm a nut. But by being a nut, I've achieved a lot. I've achieved a lot of things in my dreams and goals that have happened because what I am is I'm unreasonable in my expectations. So if I sound unreasonable, it's not to be disrespectful and it's not just a rant. It's because I know I've spent the last 30 years of my life now with more than 3 million people from every walk of life, from presidents of countries to presidents of companies to parents to children, best sports people in the world. I've had the chance to find the difference in people, and the difference is in their unreasonable psychology. That unreasonableness has gotten them to say, this is a must and I will settle for nothing less. And those individuals, whether it's a woman like Rosa Parks on a bus who says, no, I will not move to the back of the bus. That was completely unreasonable. She had no way to back it up, and she changed the world. Or a little lady, tiny woman with no background, no education, no money, who decides she's going to change the world, Mother Teresa. A person who, by the power of her will, her psychology, her unreasonableness, by making it a must to help people that no one would help, by making that her must, she changed the world. When she died, every major leader in the world flew. 100,000 people lined the streets to watch a woman who supposedly had no resources. Unreasonable men and women shape the world. If you want to get the edge, you got to get unreasonable. The way you get unreasonable is you turn your shoulds into musts. And I'm here to tell you, you're earning what you must earn. You have the time you must have. If you say to me, I really want a relationship, but I'm not in one, then your relationship's a should and not a must. What's really a must is you don't want to be hurt. It's a must not to be hurt. And if it's a must not to be hurt, you're not going to be in a relationship. Because if you're going to be in a relationship, there's going to be hurts. That's part of the nature of a relationship. But there's going to be more joy than you could ever imagine, too. Right? The advantage. You want to get the edge? Get over your fear and tell yourself the truth. We got to take a specific time each day where you break away from the hypnosis of the culture that tells you to settle for less than you can be, that tells you not to get your hopes up, that tells you should protect yourself, that tells you that basically your life cannot be what you dreamed about as a child. And I'm here to tell you that as long as you buy into the culture, you'll be like the majority of the population who have no advantage and have to settle for a life that really is what I call no man's land, a life where they're not really happy, but they're not unhappy enough doing anything about it, a life where there is no passion and no real drive. Just that sinking feeling that your life does not have a real meaning or a real purpose, but you got to continue. That's a place no one wants to live, and that's unfortunately where the majority of people live. Do you agree with me on this or disagree? If you disagree, I'm respectful of that. But if you want more, and if you believe that that's possible, and you're the kind of person that won't settle, then this is the first session in you reclaiming your power. It's the first session in you putting your foot down and saying, I will not be denied. It's the first session you saying my body, my mind, my emotions, my relationships, my finances, my career, they're not going to be perfect, but they're going to be extraordinary. And it won't be overnight, but what will change overnight is my expectations of myself. Not my expectations will suddenly be perfect without any work. This is not a little cajoling session to say, I'm going to pump myself up. I'm going to be Stuart Smalley and say, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, I'm kind enough, and by golly, people like me. No! Some people don't like you. Some people are going to fight to try and keep you from achieving. Some people are going to tell you you're wasting your time. And some people are going to try and trip you up are people that you love. And it's not because they don't love you or they're trying to hurt you. It's they don't want to be left behind. Or they don't want, your success to make them feel inferior, like you're achieving, or even if you're not succeeding, even if you're striving and they're not, there's contrast in that. That's part of life. You don't have to think anything else is to be dumb, and you're not dumb, or you would have turned this tape off a long time ago. So give this thing to somebody I don't like. This guy's crazy. I am a little crazy, but you got to be a little crazy. You got to be a little different. You got to be a little weird in your expectations of the rest of society, because if you agree with everybody else, you're in trouble. Somebody told me a long time ago, find out where the masses are going. Go the